A Karen teacher in my art class took my insulin injection pen, which is a medicine I require to survive, because she thought I was taking drugs and refused to give it back, causing me to panic and fear for my life. Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old girl, just your average high school student with type 1 diabetes. Being a type 1 diabetic means my body doesn't produce insulin, which is a hormone that helps regulate blood sugar levels. If I don't take my insulin, my blood sugar levels can get dangerously high, and if left untreated, it can lead to diabetic ketoacidosis, DKA, which can result in a coma or even death. Anyways, I was in art class today, and I realized towards the end of the period that I had forgotten to take my insulin after eating a big meal. No big deal, right? I mean, I've only been diagnosed a few months ago, and sometimes I forget, especially since I have ADHD. So I tested my blood sugar, which was way higher than normal, and I discreetly pulled out my insulin pen and started to select the right dose and prime the needle. But then, my substitute art teacher, we'll call her Karen, stopped me and snatched my insulin pen out of my hand. "What is this?" she asked with a skeptical tone. "It's my medicine," I explained. "Medicine? You mean drugs? You're taking drugs in my class. What the frick do you think you're doing?" she screamed. "I'm gonna have to report you to the principal for doing illegal activities." I tried to explain to her that it was not drugs, but it was insulin, but she wouldn't listen. "What is insulin?" she asked. "Is this some new type of new drug?" I could feel my heart racing. I was panicking. "No, it's not a drug," I exclaimed. "It's insulin. I need it to survive." And she responds, "You see, this is exactly what drug addicts do. They need drugs to survive." "No, I'm not a drug addict. I have an IEP that explains my condition and that I need insulin." "I don't care about your IEP. You're coming with me to the principal's office." She was relentless and started to escort me out of the room. I was terrified. I couldn't believe what was happening. I had never been in trouble with the school before, but I know I'm in the right and this teacher is crazy. As we walked to the principal's office, I couldn't help but think about the consequences of not taking my insulin. If I had waited any longer, my blood sugar levels would have gotten dangerously high and I could have fallen into a coma. When we arrived at the principal's office, Karen explained to the principal that I was caught taking drugs in class. But before she could finish, I cut her off and explained that it was my insulin. I showed the principal my IEP, Individualized Education Program, which explained my condition and the need for me to take my insulin regularly. The principal quickly realized the mistake and was shocked that a teacher would make such a false accusation. The principal asked Karen to step outside of the room and spoke with me privately. I was able to explain the whole situation and the importance of taking my insulin regularly. The principal apologized for the inconvenience and returned my insulin pen. I quickly injected myself and felt relieved. My mood was very bad though, as my sugar levels must have been very high. The principal allowed me to take the rest of the day off in the sick bay. I was so relieved that I didn't have to suffer from high blood sugar and possibly fall into a coma due to DKA. But I was still really upset about the whole situation. Like, honestly, I don't know what to do about this incident. I feel like I should escalate it, but I don't know how. I just wanted to make sure that something like this never happens again, and don't want to be embarrassed or scared in front of my classmates ever again. Wow, what a crazy situation, right guys? I can't even imagine what the OP must have been feeling when that substitute teacher Karen snatched their insulin pen. Just thinking about it gives me anxiety. I mean, we all forget things from time to time, but to have a teacher so quick to judge and accuse someone of taking drugs, that's just ridiculous. And the fact that Karen wouldn't listen to the OP, even when they tried to explain that it was insulin, not drugs, is just unbelievable. I'm so glad that the principal was able to quickly see the mistake and apologize for the inconvenience. But I feel for the OP. This must have been a really scary and embarrassing experience. I would definitely advise them to speak with someone higher up and try to get that teacher fired. Things of this nature should not slide. Like someone's life is on the line. Teachers can't be sloppy like this. I'd recommend complaining to the Department of Education in whatever state you're in about what happened and try to find a solution to make sure something like this never happens again. What do you guys think of this situation? Have you ever experienced anything like this? Let me know in the comments. A Karen tries to ruin a cancer patient's Make-A-Wish day so her child won't be inconvenienced. Here's what happened. Saw the absolute end-all be-all last week. I work for a small production company and we do a ton of charitable work. That day, a few of our crew members, myself included, were lent out for a Make-A-Wish type thing for a girl whose wish was to have her original song made into a music video. She was battling cancer, so, of course, every precaution had to be taken, COVID-wise. The director reserved a scenic section of the park and got all set up there so we could be outdoors with plenty of distance. Apparently, this was the only section of the park with a picnic area. We weren't aware of this, and occasionally some people would come over pretty miffed asking why we'd reserved the whole picnic area. But before they could get the whole complaint out, they'd realize the situation and leave us be, embarrassed to even have asked. This young lady was around 14 or 15 and having a great time shooting these scenes for her music video. until cue Karen. A mess of cheap Botox and overpriced athleisure gear started crossing over our clearly marked barricades with her daughter, around 6 or 7. Our PA, production assistant, rushed over, figuring she was just too dumb to notice all of our signage and physical blockades, and explained in a hushed tone that she was intruding on a private film set. Karen replied, intentionally loud, that it was a public park and she had every right to use any part of it she pleased. Now, was it a tad bit inconvenient that we'd commandeered a large strip of public land, the only area with seating? Absolutely. But the handful of people who'd wander over to complain immediately processed the nature of this project and gladly made other plans for themselves. Karen wasn't budging, but we had a permit from the city to be there, so we let her know she could quiet down or shove off. We actually had a right to have her ejected if she was being disruptive to our filming. We really didn't want to though, and we didn't exactly have the manpower to do it without calling authorities, and we didn't want to put a damper on this fun event or make a scene in front of her daughter. So the director paused filming to try and de-escalate things. There was supposed to be a liaison from the Make-A-Wish style program there, but the catering guy had gotten lost on the way to the park and she'd gone to look for him. So the director showed Karen the permit we had and warned her a final time she either needed to watch calmly or get out of there. She pulled her young daughter off to the side and started trying to goad her into singing. The kid was better able to read the room than Mom, because she was too embarrassed to start singing, and tried saying she wanted to wait until she got home. But Karen kept pointing her phone camera at the kid and shrieking she wanted her to sing there and then so she could film it. Eventually, she started playing some Disney song on from her phone and the kid began hissing along, interrupting our footage, much to Karen's twisted satisfaction. Finally, the director had it and informed her that even though she had technically moved off of the land we'd physically reserved, that the noise that she and her daughter were generating was disruptive, so he could still have her removed. Not even sure this is true, but I think he just correctly assumed that, hello, 911? This woman is harassing a young girl with cancer trying to experience her Make-A-Wish day wouldn't end in Karen's favor. But Karen's pride wouldn't allow her to simply walk away from the situation. So once her daughter had ceased this loud off-key singing, she continued lingering even after her child begged her to go play by a pond almost a quarter of a mile over. Karen continually tried to force her daughter into the shot, with hopes it would make us move, cruelly getting her kids' hopes up and dashing them repeatedly. So I guess the kid wasn't especially bright either. She'd keep saying, "Look baby, they're making a movie. Quick, go be in the movie so you can get famous, hurry!" And the girl would run onto our set, or try to, and a PA or the key grip would return her to her mom before she could run across our shot. But her daughter's anguished cries of disappointment at not becoming famous each time we returned her to her mom were enough to render most of the footage, if not useless, at least a lot less fun than it was intended to be. I guess Karen didn't think we heard her goading her child into disrupting us with fake promises of superstardom, because when the director came over for her final warning, she tried to play dumb, saying, "Oh, I think she's just dead set on using the picnic space. Since this is the only picnic space in the entire park, it would probably just be easier for you to move, huh?" Said with a combination of faux sweetness and imagined authority. Clearly, she had no idea what it takes to set up for a film if she thought we could just move locations on a whim. The director turned out to be bluffing on calling the cops because he didn't want to create a scene until the liaison returned. So he just had a couple big crew guys keep her and her daughter at bay. Eventually, the liaison did come back, but honestly, she wasn't particularly helpful. Karen deduced that she was in charge and who everyone was waiting for in order to take action, so magically shaped up the minute she appeared and stood quietly to the side. So, when every crew member descended on the liaison at once, she just meekly said, "Well, it's fine if she watches, right? People are probably just curious what's going on." Thankfully, the girl in the video had been having her makeup done for most of this, while we filmed the backup dancer scene, so didn't really notice most of the debacle and didn't care one way or another. Because Karen had a little kid with her, the girl didn't say she couldn't watch, even though she was visibly uncomfortable at the strange audience. She kept waving to and winking at the little girl though, who thought she was some kind of celebrity. It was actually pretty cute and a perfect compliment to her music video Make-A-Wish. Karen hated that and kept muttering to passerby, trying to surmount insurrection. But unbeknownst to her, just about everyone in the general area was affiliated with our shoot. She did manage to find one or two people who were irritated about the picnic area being closed, thinking we were just some greedy private party who'd section it off from other guests. But then they realized it was some kind of film production and started milling around out of idle curiosity. Again, we were mostly filming backup dancers at this point, a couple of the girls' friends, so I give credit to Karen that if she wasn't paying a lot of close attention to the filming itself, it may not have been immediately obvious what exactly we were doing at that point. That still doesn't make what she did next okay. She'd make the occasional comment to the other picnic people and was winning some of them over. She'd say something like, "But do they need the entire space?" and get an affirmative nod. Whatever, I don't think the other people were really listening that closely. They were watching too intently, waiting for someone famous to pop out in the music video. Our tech people had determined that it wasn't interfering with the audio, so we had begun to ignore her also, as long as she stayed out of the way. Then the star girl comes out from her big emotional dance scene and she's immediately giving it her all. So Karen decides to throw in another blow by turning to a woman nearest her and saying, again, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh God, look, it's one of those girls who thinks it's cool to pretend to be a boy. I'll bet she hasn't stopped to consider how long it will take to grow her hair back." You'd think Karen would have stopped for a second to consider that maybe the girl wasn't cultivating a chick new look and in fact had cancer. Or, better yet, that maybe a stranger's hairstyle wasn't her business in any case. And maybe her not having eyebrows or arm hair either was a clue. But nope. So, our poor starring girl hears this and crumples up into tears, now assuming that the crowds who had been gathering throughout the day were not doing so because they thought she was some famous pop star, but instead to gawk because she was strange looking. She rushed away, and those standing anywhere near Karen hurried off to make it clear they weren't associated with her. That's when the liaison realized what we had been trying to warn her about with Karen's behavior and tore into her along with several members of the girl's extended family. Like a true coward, Karen didn't even try to apologize. She just bolted as quickly as she could, saying, maybe we'll find a different spot since you're clearly busy, as though she were doing us a special consideration. Luckily, our lead girl's entire extended family was there and cheered her up very quickly, and some supportive civilians had showed up with genuine curiosity about the film set, then loved watching her dance for no other reason than that they loved watching her dance. So she was happy and having fun again very quickly after Karen skulked off. But still, really quite a hurtful and inappropriate spectacle. If she gets this worked up over a picnic table, I can only imagine when her daughter starts to face life's real challenges. Wow, I'm still in disbelief about the story that the OP shared with us. It's crazy how some people, like this Karen, can be so self-centered and inconsiderate. Can you imagine ruining a cancer patient's Make-A-Wish day just because you don't want your kid to be inconvenienced? That's just unbelievable. The poor girl was finally getting a chance to live out her dream, and this woman just had to insert herself into the situation and make it all about her. The patience and professionalism of the crew and the director who were trying to make this girl's wish come true is just commendable. I'm glad they stood their ground and didn't let Karen spoil the day for the girl. I just hope that in the end, the girl was able to fully enjoy her special day and create lasting memories. So what do you all think of this absurd situation? Click the video on screen right now where Karen knowingly feeds OP nuts, the food he's super allergic to cure his allergy. I mean, that's just stupidly insane and dangerous.